Welcome to the new YouTube channel. If you haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button to follow us all season long for updates and content. So happy that you're here. It's going to be a great year. CeeDee Lamb, $34 million a year, Mitchell. And as the person who said he wasn't a receiver, number one, he deserved every penny based off his performance last year and the year before. He's their go-to guy, the most targets in the league, I believe, or right up there, right, one or two. Had a great season, been phenomenally consistent for the Dallas Cowboys. But people wonder why it's taking so long to pay these receivers, and why is this such an odd year and so many receivers holding out and so many receivers holding in, and what's the deal, Mitchell? And the same is true with your boy Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, one of the top receivers in the National Football League. He wants to get paid like his LSU brethren, Justin Jefferson. I mean, that was a lot of money in that room at LSU, Mitchell. There was a lot of money in that room at LSU.
And Odell was throwing around a lot of money before they got paid too. So, Richard, let's start with CeeDee Lamb, though, because as you mentioned, last year, this time, you weren't his fan. You know, you didn't like him. You said it.
I don't dislike him.
I know you didn't dislike him as a human being, but you said this guy's not a wide receiver one. I think he proved a lot of people wrong last year. He's become one of the faces of the franchise in Dallas, and they paid him as such. Jerry Jones finally has to bite the bullet and pay this man. Richard, you got to talk a little bit more in depth about this wide receiving market, because to me, these numbers have become so extrapolated. I mean, you got guys getting paid mid-30s now, when it seemed like a couple years ago, $20 million was top end, and we thought that was a ton of money. This is blowing that out of the water.
Yeah, Metro, usually the markets grow with the cap pretty consistently, and it's usually percentages of the cap. And the league will never outright say it. The owners will never outright say it, but that's how they always systematically did it. It'd be, corners and receivers are right around 10 to 12% of the cap, depending on which one it is, what year it is, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower. Quarterbacks are right between 17 and 20% of the cap, higher or lower, whatever. I mean, those numbers probably still just about even. But the receiver market and the corner market are usually married right around $1 or $2 million difference. Top receivers getting 20, the top corners probably getting 18. And then one day, I don't know when it was. I think maybe Devontae or Tyreek, they broke it. They broke the system. One of those teams broke it. And the corner receiver market, the gap between them just became tremendous. I think the top corner may be right around 21 million right now. The top receivers at 35. It's never been a $14 million gap. And that's the problem with the league right now, Mitchell. Because if you ask any GM, you ask any team, you ask probably a casual fan, the importance of each position when it comes to a football team. If you're building a roster and you said, who are you picking first? You go with your quarterback first. So that's why they get paid the most. Then it's a debate. If you're an offensive guy, you say left tackle. If you're a defensive guy, you say D end or corner, get to the quarterback, things like that. But you never say receiver. I don't think anybody's building their team receiver first. And no offense to the receivers. They're doing a great job. And hey, it's their world. We just living in it. They should be taking advantage as they are. But that's what's wrong with the market right now. When receivers are getting paid more than left tackles, then the algorithm is off, Mitchell. The team building algorithm is off, and there needs to be a correction. And I don't know when it's going to happen, because for all intents and purposes, the receivers are going to continue to push the market as they should. And just like Trent Williams is looking at that, he's looking at these receivers like, what do you mean $35 million for a receiver? I'm a left tackle. And you telling me 28, 29 million? Like, no, I want 35. Rightfully so, because the most valuable position, it's a changer. Like, receivers can get hurt and you can find a guy comparable. Maybe not top guys like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek, you know what I mean? But you can usually find a guy that can be productive and keep your offense going. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs last year. What $30 million receiver did they have when they won it? And that's back to back. I don't think they've had a $30 million receiver when they've won it. And not to say you can't do it that way, but it's just rare. It's rare to see a team do it with a receiver as one of your highest paid guys in this new day and age, because it's such a disproportionate number right now that it's getting ridiculous, and that's why it's harder. I called this 3 years ago that Jamar Chase is going to have a hard time getting paid, Mitchell. I said it.
I remember.
It's still true because Mike Brown is not paying guys. He had to bite the bullet, and I'm sure he begrudgingly paid Joe Burrow. Not because Joe Burrow isn't talented and isn't a franchise quarterback or hasn't performed to deserve the money he has, because Mike Brown doesn't want to pay anybody, Mitchell. He literally wants to have 35-man roster if he could and have a couple guys playing both sides of the football. I'm not saying I heard it out of his own mouth. I'm not saying I've sat in meetings and heard him say things like that, but that's the mindset they're dealing with. So when it comes to paying a receiver $35 million because Jamar Chase has a great case to say, hey, Justin Jefferson got it, my LSU brethren got it, I need the same thing. He has a great case to say that. He's been very consistent, been dynamic, arguably one of the top receivers, if not the top receiver in the National Football League. But it's changing the way teams are building. You used to pay corners top money. Now corners are looking at receivers like, how are receivers getting $14 million more than us? That doesn't sound right. And I don't know what's going to correct it, but a correction has to come, and it has to come soon. So with the Brandon Aiyuk situation, it's only making matters worse in San Francisco because you really don't have to do anything, but it's going to challenge a lot of things because as he sits on the sideline, it's much easier when a guy's removed. If a guy's removed and you're at home and you're chilling and the team doesn't see you, it's cool. You know what I mean? You can kind of get away with it. The team's not seeing you. You're like, man, I hope he gets his money, but it is what it is. But when you're inside the building and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, working out, treatment, staying in shape, guys are seeing you, just human nature kind of kicks in and you're like, well, if they start losing, it becomes an issue. If they're winning, Mitchell, it doesn't become an issue at all for anybody but BA. But if they start losing, I would guess some conversations start to happen, and BA starts to get leverage at that point. But this is still a league where guys care about winning, especially a team like that where the championship window is potentially closing because of these deals and because of the deals coming up and money. You got to pay Trent more. Maybe you can manipulate that and move the third year to the second, to the first, guarantee 2 years or something to get him, to appease him and get him back in the building. But they don't get Trent Williams paid. The wheels are, they're not off the car, Mitchell, but they're rattling.
They're rattling.